Hello, my name is Preston, and today we are reading Chapter 4 of the Story for Kids, forward by Max Lucado and Randy Free. Chapter 4, Out of Egypt. Jacob and Joseph died. Many years went by. Soon there were thousands and thousands of Hebrews living in Egypt. Then a new king came to power in Egypt. Joseph didn't mean anything to him. "Look," he said to his people, "the Israelites are far too many for us. Come, we must deal with them carefully. If we don't, there will be even more of them. Then if war breaks out, they'll join our enemies. They'll fight against us and leave the country." So the Egyptians put slave drivers over the people of Israel. The slave drivers treated them badly and made them work hard. The Israelites built the cities of Hittim and Ramesses so Pharaoh could store things there. Then Pharaoh gave an order to all his people. He said, "You must throw every Hebrew baby boy into the Nile River, but let every Hebrew baby girl live." A man and a woman from the tribe of Levi got married. She became pregnant and had a son by her husband. She saw that her baby was a fine child, and she hid him for 3 months. After that, she couldn't hide him any longer. So she got a basket made out of stems of tall grass. She coated the basket with tar. She placed the child in the basket, then she put it in the tall grass that grew along the bank of the Nile River. The child's sister wasn't very far. She wanted to see what would happen to him. Pharaoh's daughter went down to the Nile River to take a bath. Her attendants were walking along the river. She saw the basket in the tall grass, so she sent her female slave to get it. When she opened it, Pharaoh's daughter saw the baby. He was crying. She felt sorry for him. "This is one of the Hebrew babies," she said. Then his sister spoke to Pharaoh's daughter. She asked, "Do you want me to go get one of the Hebrew women? She could breastfeed the baby for you." "Yes, go," she answered. So the girl went and got the baby's mother. Pharaoh's daughter said to her, "Take this baby and feed him for me. I'll pay you." So the woman took the baby and fed him. When the child grew older, she took him to Pharaoh's daughter, and he became her son. She named him Moses. She said, "I pulled him out of the water." Moses grew up. One day, he went out to where his own people were. He watched them while they were in hard work. He saw an Egyptian hitting a Hebrew man. The man was one of Moses' own people. Moses looked around and didn't see anyone. So he killed the Egyptian, then hid his body in the sand. Moses was afraid people knew what he had done, so he left Egypt. He went to Midian, where he met a family of shepherds. He got married and became a shepherd too. Moses was taking care of the flock of his father-in-law, Hierto. Hierto was a priest of Midian. Moses led the flock to the western side of the desert. It was the mountain of God. Then the angel of the Lord appeared to him from inside a burning bush. Moses saw that the bush was on fire, but it didn't burn up. "I'll go over and see this strange sight. Why doesn't the bush burn up?" The Lord saw that Moses had gone over to look, so God spoke to him from inside the bush. He called out, "Moses, Moses!" "Here I am," Moses said. "Do not come any closer," God said. "Take off your sandals. The place you are standing on is holy ground." He continued, "I am God of your father. I am the God of Abraham. I am the God of Isaac, and I am the God of Jacob." When Moses heard that, he turned his face away. He was afraid to look at God. The Lord said, "I have seen how my people are suffering in Egypt. I have heard them cry out because of their slave drivers. I am concerned about their suffering. So I have come down to save them from the Egyptians. I will bring them up out of the land. I will bring them into a good land. It has a lot of room. It is a land that has plenty of milk and honey." And now Israel's cry for help has reached me. I see how badly the Egyptians are treating them. So now, go! I am sending you to Pharaoh. I want you to bring the Israelites out of Egypt. They are my people. But Moses spoke to God. "Who am I that I should go to Pharaoh?" he said. "Who am I that I should bring the Israelites out of Egypt?" God said, "I will be with you. I will give you a sign. It will prove that I have sent you. When you have brought the people out of Egypt, all of you will worship me on this mountain." Moses spoke to the Lord. He said, Lord, I've never been a good speaker, and I haven't gotten any better since you spoke to me. I don't speak very well at all." The Lord said to him, "Who makes human beings able to talk? Who makes them unable to hear or speak? Who makes them able to see? Who makes them blind? It is I, the Lord. Now go. I will help you speak. I will teach you what to say." But Moses said to the Lord, "Lord, please send someone else to do it." Then the Lord became very angry with Moses. He said, "What about your brother Aaron, the Levite? I know he can speak very well. He is already on the way to meet you. He will be glad to see you. Speak to him. Tell him what to say. I will help both of you speak. I will teach you what to do. He will speak to the people for you. He will be like your mouth, and you will be like God to him. But take this walking stick in your hand. You will be able to do signs." Moses and Aaron went to Pharaoh's palace and asked him to let the Hebrews go. But Pharaoh didn't want to let the slaves go. In fact, he was so angry that Moses and Aaron dared to ask him to release the slaves that he decided to punish the Hebrews and make them work even harder. Then the Lord said to Moses, "Pharaoh is very stubborn. He refuses to let the people go. In the morning, Pharaoh will go down to the Nile River. Go and meet him on the bank of the river. Take in your hand the walking stick that turned into a snake. Say to Pharaoh, 'The Lord, the God of the Hebrews, has sent me to you. He says, let my people go. Then they will be able to worship me in the desert. But up to now you have not listened. The Lord says, here is how you will know that I am the Lord. I will strike the water of the Nile River with this walking stick that is in my hand. The river will turn into blood. The fish in the river will die. The river will sink. The Egyptians will not be able to drink out of this water." The Lord said to Moses, "Tell Aaron, get your walking stick. Reach your hand out over the waters of Egypt. The streams, camels, ponds, and all the lakes will turn into blood. There will be blood everywhere in Egypt. It will even be in the wooden buckets and the stone jars." Moses and Aaron did exactly as the Lord had commanded them. Aaron held out his staff in front of Pharaoh, and his water turned into blood. The fish in the river died. The river smelled so bad that Egyptians couldn't drink its water. But the Egyptian magicians did the same thing by doing their magic tricks. So Pharaoh became stubborn. He wouldn't listen to Moses or Aaron, just as the Lord had said. Even that miracle didn't change Pharaoh's mind. In fact, he turned around and went into his palace. All the Egyptians dug holes near the Nile River to get drinking water. They couldn't drink water from the river. Even though God turned all the water to blood, Pharaoh wouldn't let the Israelites go. So God sent frogs to cover the land, but Pharaoh still wouldn't let the Israelites go. When God sent more punishments called plagues of gnats, flies, animals, animal diseases, sores called boils, hail, locusts, and darkness, Pharaoh still wouldn't let the Israelites leave. He wanted to keep the Israelites as slaves, no matter what Moses said or God did. Pharaoh was determined to say no. The Lord had spoken to Moses. He had said, "I will bring one more plague to Pharaoh and on Egypt. After that, he will let you and your people go. When he does, he will drive every one of you away." God sent one last plague, and it was the worst of them all. God was going to take away the oldest son from every Egyptian family. He told Moses to have the Israelites smear lamb's blood over their doors so that this awful plague wouldn't happen to them. That night, all through Egypt, mothers and fathers cried as they discovered their oldest son had died. The plague killed Pharaoh's son too. During the night, Pharaoh sent for Moses and Aaron. He said to them, "Get out of here! You and your Israelites, leave my people! Go, worship the Lord just as you have asked. Go, take your flocks and herds just as you have said, and also give me your blessing." The Israelites lived in Egypt for 430 years. Then all the Lord's people marched out of Egypt like an army. That happened at the end of the 430 years, to the exact day. By day, the Lord went ahead of them in a pillar of cloud. It guided them on their way. At night, he led them with a pillar of fire. It gave them light, so they could travel by day or at night. The pillar of cloud didn't leave its place in front of the people during the day, and the pillar of fire didn't leave its place at night. God knew Pharaoh would soon change his mind and try to get his slaves, the Israelites, back. So God told Moses to have the Israelites walk back toward Egypt and then camp out a special place near the Red Sea. God had a plan. He wanted to lure Pharaoh into a trap. Pharaoh will think the Israelites are wandering all around the land. They don't know which way to go. The desert is all around them. I will make Pharaoh stubborn. He will chase them, but I will gain glory for myself because of what will happen to Pharaoh and his whole army. And the Egyptians will know that I am the Lord. So the Israelites camped by the Red Sea. The king of Egypt was told that the people had escaped. Then Pharaoh and his officials changed their mind about them. They said, "What have we done? We've let the people of Israel go. We've lost our slaves and all the work they used to do for us." So he had his chariot made ready. He took his army with him. The Lord made Pharaoh, the king of Egypt, stubborn, so he chased the Israelites as they were marching out boldly. The Egyptians went after the Israelites. All Pharaoh's horses and chariots and horsemen and troops chased them. They caught up with the Israelites as they camped by the sea. As Pharaoh approached, the Israelites looked back. There were the Egyptians marching after them. The Israelites were terrified. They cried out to the Lord. They said to Moses, "Why did you bring us to the desert to die? Weren't there any graves in Egypt? What have you done to us by bringing us out of Egypt? We told you in Egypt, leave us alone. Let us serve the Egyptians. It would have been better for us to serve the Egyptians than to die here in the desert." Moses answered the people. He said, "Don't be afraid. Stand firm. You will see how the Lord will save you today. Do you see the Egyptians? You will never see them again. The Lord will fight for you. Just be still." Then the Lord spoke to Moses. He said, "Why are you crying out to me? Tell the people of Israel to move on. Hold out your walking stick. Reach out your hand over the Red Sea to dry ground. I will make the Egyptians stubborn. They will go in after the Israelites. I will gain glory for myself because of what will happen to Pharaoh, his army, his chariots, and horses, and horsemen. The Egyptians will know that I am the Lord. I will gain glory because of what will happen to Pharaoh, his chariots, and his horsemen." The angel of God had been traveling in front of Israel's army. Now he moved back and went behind them. The pillar of cloud also moved away from in front of them. Now it stood behind them. It came between the armies of Egypt and Israel, and through the night the cloud brought darkness to one side and light to the other. Neither army went near the other all night long. Then Moses reached out his hand over the Red Sea. All that night the Lord pushed the sea back with a strong east wind. He turned the sea into dry land. The waters were divided. The people of Israel went through the sea on dry ground. There was a wall of water on their right side and on their left. The Egyptians chased them. All Pharaoh's horses and chariots and horsemen followed them into the sea. Near the end of the night, the Lord looked down from the pillar of fire and cloud. He saw the Egyptian army and threw it into panic. He jammed the wheels of the chariots that made the chariots hard to drive. The Egyptians said, "Let's get away from the Israelites. The Lord is fighting for Israel against Egypt." Then the Lord spoke to Moses. He said, "Reach out your hand over the sea. The waters will flow back over the Egyptians and their chariots and horsemen." So Moses reached out his hand over the sea. At sunrise, the sea went back to its place. The Egyptians tried to run away from the sea, but the Lord swept them into it. The water flowed back and covered the chariots and horsemen. It covered the entire army of Pharaoh that had followed the people of Israel into the sea. Not one of the Egyptians was left. Moses led the people away from the Red Sea. Since the Israelites were really free from Egypt, they headed towards Canaan, the land God had promised them. But the Israelites weren't happy marching all day, and they started to complain. So Moses and Aaron spoke to all the people of Israel. They said, "In the evening you will know that the Lord brought you out of Egypt, and in the morning you will see the glory of the Lord. He has heard you say you aren't happy with him. Who are we? Why are we telling us you aren't happy with us? Then Moses told Aaron, talk to the whole community of Israel. Say to them, come to the Lord. He has heard you speak against him. While Aaron was talking to the whole community of Israel, they looked toward the desert. There was the glory of the Lord appearing in the cloud. The Lord said to Moses, I've heard of the people of Israel talking about how unhappy they are. Tell them, when the sun goes down, you will eat meat. In the morning, you will be filled with bread. Then you will know that I am the Lord your God. That evening, quail came and covered the camp. In the morning, the ground around the camp was covered with dew. When the dew was gone, thin flakes appeared on the desert floor. They looked like frost on the ground. People of the people of Israel saw the flakes. They asked each other, "What's that?" They didn't know what it was. Moses said to them, "It's bread the Lord has given you to eat. Here's what the Lord has commanded. He said, everyone should gather as much as they need. Take 3 pounds for each person who lives in your tent." The people of Israel did as they were told. Some gathered a lot and some gathered a little. When they measured it out, the one who gathered a lot didn't have too much, and the one who gathered a little had enough. Everyone gathered only what they needed. Discussion questions.
Do you pray to God before you take a test or when you try something new? If so, what do you talk to Him about? 2. What are some wonderful things that have happened in your life? Did you thank God for them? Besides expressing your thanks in prayer, how else can you show God your appreciation? 3. Have you ever wondered if God was going to help you when you were afraid? What can you do when you feel this way?